I asked, you answered. So here come the off-meta weapon builds. Today I'll be covering my favorite new melee weapon, the Tenet Grigori. Not only do I have a build that literally one-shots beyond level 200 enemies, I'm also going to share a detailed breakdown of my process for creating the build, math included. There won't be a test at the end, but please pay attention anyway. This is Exo-Meta. Okwat Tanzian Wan, my people, and welcome to the very first episode of Exo-Meta. I considered at least a dozen different weapons before settling on the Tenet Grigori. One reason, it reminds me of the Electro Bacento one of Snoke's elite Praetorian guards used, but with the electroplasma filament set at a steeper angle. The other reason is that I'm not a huge fan of where the melee meta is at right now. Call me crazy, but I don't think throwing something 100 meters away, where it then detonates like a hydrogen bomb, really qualifies as melee. That's a grenade. And if anyone can convince me that firing a gun is somehow melee combat just because it has a bayonet attached, I'll do a full run-through of every Steel Path mission using only Ureli and the Saber.
I'm fine, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, that was gross, but just to cleanse the palate, let's see the type of one-shot I was talking about during the intro, yeah? I hate using the simulacrum, but some jobs require it. So, here's a level 180 Corrupted Bombard. Don't blink, okay? And just so we're clear, here's the Warframe build I'm using. That's right, zero mods, arcanes, or abilities are being used to boost damage. That's all coming from the weapon build. Do I have your attention now? Awesome. Tenet Grigori had my attention from the first time I looked it over, and not just for its aesthetics. You see, scythes have a stance called Reaping Spiral, which has forced slash procs on several of its combos. In case you don't know, slash procs create the bleed status effect, which bypasses shields, armor, and resistances, dealing all of its damage directly to unmodified health. At high levels, the EHP, or effective health points, for most of the tougher enemies come from their armor, so bypassing it allows you to deal with them much more quickly than punching through it or even stripping it. Additionally, Tenet Grigori has the highest base heavy attack damage of all scythes, and scythes just happen to be tied for the highest base damage multiplier for heavy attacks, at 600%. This means that a single heavy attack deals the same damage as 6 regular attacks, more or less. It's more complicated when you factor in crits and statuses, so actually this is probably a good time to bring up the spreadsheet. Oh, right. I'd forgotten about this. Very good. Can we at least move it to a corner so people can see the spreadsheet? Thank you. All right, this is the formula that determines the damage of a Tenet Grigori heavy attack. Each color represents a different multiplier in that formula, and the light gray areas are mods in my build that affect those different multipliers. Most of the multipliers are determined by adding up the individual bonuses. But crit bonus is a little more complicated, so I'm showing 2 intermediate steps in the middle here. At the bottom are all the multiplier totals before the final calculation happens. I should also point out that I'm not factoring in any bonuses that come from outside sources, such as Warframe mods like Steel Charge, arcanes like Arcane Fury, abilities like Roar, and so on. This build is just for Tenet Grigori, so the goal is to learn what it can do before getting to those other factors. Looking at base damage, the only portion we can affect is the innate elemental bonus that all Tenet weapons get. To illustrate what the build is capable of, I'm using the max bonus of 60%, which translates to 136.8 damage, even though my Tenet Grigori is still at 43%. Glass needs to carry one above 50% before I'll start farming enough corrupted hollow keys to fully upgrade it. So I'm not spending 4 days in Railjack just to max out one weapon.
You count me out!
Our base damage bonuses come from Sacrificial Pressure and Killing Blow. Spoiled Strike is an option I considered, but ultimately didn't include. Even though the negative attack speed doesn't affect heavy attacks, meaning this is just a pure 100% damage bonus for this build, this is already a stacked multiplier, which makes that number less impactful. Also, hitting a single enemy for 50k more damage isn't as good as hitting 3 extra enemies for 150k each, and Primed Reach allows us to hit those extra enemies. Regarding pressure point options, Primed would increase the bonus by 27.5%, but Sacrificial pairs with Sacrificial Steel in an important way, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Our only faction damage bonus comes from the Primed Smite mods, which change based on the faction you're facing, obviously. I know many people would rather not swap mods in and out based on faction matchup, so I'll talk about this being optional in a bit. However, you should notice that you're not just losing a portion of a multiplier by not using a smite mod. You're losing a multiplier entirely. This is going to have a significant impact on your damage, more than you probably realize right now. And if you plan on doing endurance runs, it's worth the extra 15 seconds to get the right smite mod in beforehand.
Now I'm asking you a simple question. Are you lazy?
The Scythe weapon class bonus of 600% is static, so there's no need to discuss that. Our combo counter will never drop below 2 because Corrupt Charge starts us off at plus 30, and it'll also never go above 2 because we'll be zeroing out the bonus each time we use a heavy attack. Lastly, we have our crit bonus. If you're familiar with these types of formulas, you may notice that I'm using crit tier instead of crit chance, and here's why. Sacrificial Steel has a plus 220% bonus on its own, but remember, we're also using Sacrificial Pressure. That increases Sacrificial Steel's bonus to plus 275%, and this is doubled for heavy attacks to plus 550%. Additionally, the Gladiator mod set bonus is at 10% per combo multiplier, and since we're always at 2, total crit chance will be raised another 20%. This total raises Tenet Grigio's base crit chance of 24% to 137%. This means that roughly 2/3 of our hits will be a tier 1 crit, and 1/3 will be a tier 2. If I use crit chance in the formula instead of crit tier, it'll show me an average of all attacks. I'd rather see what the value of an actual attack is, and just change the crit tier between 1 and 2 to see the difference. I can roughly guess the average if I want to. I realize this has been a lot of math so far, but I'm almost done, so stick with me. Now that we can calculate the damage of a heavy attack, we need to talk about the bleed status proc, since that's how we plan on killing enemies. After a 1-second delay, bleed status deals a tick of damage every second for 6 seconds. The calculation to determine that tick damage is actually pretty simple. It's 35% of our initial damage multiplied by our faction damage bonus. But APOC, didn't we already multiply by our faction damage bonus in the initial damage formula?
Check out the big brain on Brad.
That's correct! But remember when I warned you that dropping the faction mod would affect your damage more than you realize? That's because it's a multiplier in 2 places. Yeah, this is exactly why I'm okay with dropping Spoiled Strike, since it's just a portion of a loaded multiplier, but not Prime Smite, since it's 2 entire multipliers on its own. As you can see here in the spreadsheet, dropping Spoiled Strike only costs about 9,000 damage per tick. Dropping Prime Smite, however, costs us 29,000 damage per tick. Please use your faction mods.
I recommend it and use it.
One last bit of math to cover, I promise, and it's regarding follow-through. I'm not sure if it's a well-known mechanic, but follow-through determines how much damage is lost when your melee attack hits more than one enemy. You can see here in the arsenal that Tenet Grigio has a 0.6 follow-through value. This means that if your attack hits more than one enemy, each enemy receives only 60% of the damage dealt to the previous one. Why does this matter? Well, the mod I recommend using instead of Spoiled Strike is Primed Reach. It gives you +3 range to a weapon that has a base of 2.5 range. More than doubles it. But since it'll have you hitting multiple enemies with each swing, I don't want you thinking something's wrong with your setup when they don't all take full damage. You could technically replace the Primed Smite mod with Primed Reach instead, and keep Spoiled Strike, but are you really going to do that after seeing how much damage is lost? Really?
Claire would be so disappointed.
I wish I could tell you that what you'll see in-game is going to match exactly what I've shown you in this spreadsheet, but believe it or not, Warframe is actually even more complicated than what I've covered today. Faction resistances and weaknesses, body part multipliers, hidden damage reduction, and quantization.
What the hell did you just say?
I know, but it all affects the actual numbers you see popping out of enemies. What spreadsheets like this allow me to do, however, is get a good understanding of what mods are going to add the most value to my builds, as well as compare different options. So there you have it, my first off-meta weapon build guide. Before you take off though, let me show you something.
Let me show you something.
Okay, but it wasn't that clip. When I'm finished with a build, and I'm happy with it, I like to look at what other people are doing and see how my build measures up. So in config C here, I've got the top-rated build for Tenet Grigio from overframe.gg, which I happen to think is a fabulous resource, and I'll include a link to it in the description below this video. Okay, we've got Amalgam Organ Shatter, and the only benefit to using this over normal Organ Shatter is for the heavy attack wind-up speed, so you'd think this is a heavy attack build, but there's also 2 elemental mods in Berserker Fury, none of which has any effect on heavy attacks. Blood Rush stacks with combo multiplier, but heavy attacks use up your combo count, so I think we're just going to assume that this is a normal attack build, and Amalgam Organ Shatter is here just in case we ever want to blow some combo stacks. I'm going to load up that same level 180 Corrupted Bombard that I one-shot at the beginning of the video, and let's see what happens. He seems to still be alive. There we go. Now he's dead. Okay, so that was a few more attacks than one. But to be fair, we didn't get a chance to ramp up Berserker Fury, and this build has corrosive damage, which is better versus ferrite armor than the alloy armor of a Bombard. I guess most people aren't battling level 180 enemies as well, so this time let's load up varied enemies. Just make them level 50. That should be a fair fight, right? Alright, this is the top rated build. Now we've got some attack speed, we're hacking, we're slashing, they're dying, eventually. That was definitely an improvement. The attack speed and combo multiplier helped a lot. Now let's pop my build back on. I'll load up the exact same group of enemies. Here we go. Okay, so, Alright, I don't want to say anything bad about someone else's build, so I'm just gonna